banks are being stretched thin as inflation and rising costs force more people to turn to them.
Pre-pandemic, we were seeing about 60,000 client visits per month. That number has risen to 120 before inflation and now 182,000.
The Daily Bread Food Bank launching its Thanksgiving food drive today, saying the demand is reaching crisis levels. Plus,
Canadian students condemn the senseless murder of Gina. We condemn Islamic Republic's criminal oppression.
Students gather for a vigil at U of T in honor of an Iranian woman who died in police custody after being arrested for not wearing her hijab properly. What the students are calling on the Canadian government to do. And
that's somebody's baby. Somebody gave birth to that child. Somebody knows she's missing.
4 months after the body of a young girl was found in a river in Dunnville, her identity is still a mystery. Why? It may take some time still for any answers. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Food banks across the GTA are seeing record demand. And with inflation and the rising cost of food and rent, it's not surprising that more people need to turn for help. Today, the Daily Bread Food Bank launched its Thanksgiving food drive, hoping to raise enough to meet the need. It says it's seen a staggering 170% increase in clients since the pandemic started. Talia Ricci has more.
I take fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, milk, eggs, yogurt, all that necessities.
Asashi Ali says these days money is so tight her family sometimes skips meals. Weekly trips to the Fort York Food Bank help.
It's helped me and my family a lot because we are depending on them because we have not so much money left to purchase these grocery items.
Inflation and the rising cost of food and rent has resulted in GTA food banks noting the highest number of clients in their history.
Pre-pandemic, we were seeing about 60,000 client visits per month. That number has risen to 120 before inflation and now 182,000 per month.
Today, the Daily Bread Food Bank launched its annual Thanksgiving food drive, calling for donations of food and funds to help meet the demand. Several fire halls will host donation boxes. CEO Neil Hetherington warns the need in the city is reaching crisis levels.
There is a lack of affordable housing, a lack of income security, and decent employment.
But we're working hard on all three, and that's all that we can do. But we have to do it together with the other levels of government, not just on our own. The objective, of course, is to make sure that we try and ensure affordability for people who live in the city.
The rising numbers are being felt at smaller food banks, too.
The number of clients have dramatically increased since March. Every month we're hitting record numbers.
A challenge food banks hope people realize is serious.
What would we do if that was 182,000 flood victims or 182,000 individuals without power? We would mobilize resources.
For Ali, she dreams of a future where she can give back to the food bank instead of relying on it.
If I get someday some better and best job, I will return to it.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are still searching for suspects after a 17-year-old boy was fatally shot yesterday afternoon. Zabian Lawrence was killed while standing outside his apartment building near Brimley and Eglinton. Greg Ross has the latest.
It just breaks my heart.
John Davis was one of the many who came to this apartment building in Scarborough to leave flowers and pay their respects to 17-year-old Zabian Lawrence.
He was a good guy, always down to earth, humble, always cared about his friends.
He wasn't nice, he was really respectful. He would say good morning and so forth.
Police say Lawrence was shot multiple times just before 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Shockingly loud.
Jay Alexander says he was startled when he heard the gunshots from his 10th floor apartment.
I didn't realize it was this close to the building.
Alvin James lives on the first floor. He heard the shots as well.
I wasn't rushing out here to get involved.
After hearing the gunshots, many residents tell us that they looked out their windows and saw 17-year-old Zabian Lawrence laying here on the ground just steps from the front door of the building.
There were people screaming, call 911, oh my God, so I took it upon myself to call the authorities. There were some kids around his age, trying to come to his aid.
Police say Lawrence was rushed to hospital where he later died. Residents say they saw multiple people running away from the scene after the gunshots. At this point, Police have not released any details about possible suspects. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
For the second day in a row, police officers in the GTA attended a funeral for one of their own. Constable Travis Gillespie was laid to rest this afternoon in Markham. Hundreds of police officers were on hand for this service. The 38-year-old officer had only been with York Police since 2020. Gillespie was killed last Wednesday while on his way to work when his car collided head-on with another vehicle on Major Mackenzie Drive. The driver of this other vehicle has been charged with impaired driving and dangerous driving causing death. Now, just yesterday, officers from across North America were in Toronto for the funeral of slain Toronto Police Constable Andrew Hong.
All of us are feeling very similar. We're here with broken hearts, but we know by coming together, those hearts will be filled again with the passion that all of these officers have to serve their community.
Constable Gillespie and Constable Hong, both on the minds of those taking part in the annual Canadian Police and Peace Officers Memorial Ride today. The ride kicking off early this morning in Toronto. It honors officers who have died in the line of duty. Participants cycled about 200 kilometers today, stopping for the night in Belleville. The ride wraps up on Saturday in Ottawa. Students gathered for a vigil at the University of Toronto tonight to honor Mahsa Amini. It's been 6 days since the Iranian woman died while in police custody. Now, she had been detained for not wearing her hijab properly. Since then, outrage over her death has only grown, sparking protests not only across Iran, but throughout the world. Our Tyler Cheese was at the vigil at U of T tonight.
Students and alumni gathered outside Convocation Hall today to pay their respects for Mahsa Amini. But this vigil was more than just an occasion to mourn.
Anyone who's concerned about human rights, about women's rights, about the autonomy of a woman over her body, over what she wears, the most basic right that any human can hold anywhere in the world. We're here to raise awareness about that.
The group reading a statement directed at those they feel can make a difference.
She was traveling with her family when she was abducted by the hangman of the morality police and murdered. We expect the Canadian government not to normalize diplomatic relationships with the murderous terrorist regime that is the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Amini was on vacation with her family in Tehran when she was arrested on September 13th. Police say her death was due to a heart attack, but many believe she was beaten.
This should not be happening to our girls. They should not be forced to wear a hijab and should not be beaten up if they wear it inappropriately.
Since Amini's death, the Iranian government has been trying to contain protests across the country.
The Iranian regime in Iran has cut off the internet access to the protesters, so we really want to give voice to what is happening in Iran right now.
Some noting the problems in Iran extend far beyond women's rights.
It's about our language, our literature. It's not all about women right now. It's about everything.
For many, Amini's death is a catalyst to finally push back against an oppressive state.
This is what they need to do. This is what they need to stand in solidarity and support of Iranian women and really look at that in terms of their pushing this state to stop this level of violence that they are committing.
Right now, what the students want most is for people in this part of the world to be aware of what's happening and join in their fight.
I asked my fellow citizens, my fellow Torontonians, to come out, to share their voice with us, try to understand our story, and write to their MPs, write to their MPPs.
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said Canada has called for a full and transparent investigation into Amini's death. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go to Dahlia Ashry now with a first look at your forecast. And Dahlia, it's finally here. First day of fall, and it's a cool and crisp one.
That's right, Kelda. It's cool, crisp. Pumpkin spice lattes will keep you warm, and it's just that time of the year. Temperatures drop in the evening. Quite a jump from yesterday. Yesterday felt like it was 30 degrees, and today, not so much. The daytime highs in Toronto today were 19 degrees, so that is quite the difference from yesterday's temperature. but fitting for the first day of fall, really. And then Windsor 20 degrees, a little bit cooler out in Barrie, 16 degrees. Now, today there was a little bit of showers, but for the most part, it was a dry day, and we're going to see the same thing for tomorrow. But today mostly was all about the winds. It was strong winds today is what we experienced, and that's going to pick up as well as we head into tomorrow. But there's also some frost advisory for northern part of the province, but the winds is really what we're keeping an eye on. 47 kilometers an hour, what it's going to drop down to later on tomorrow, and also it's going to get a little bit better, but that's going to pick back up again tonight. Temperatures will drop to 5 degrees, single digits, how we're beginning fall, and then tomorrow 16 degrees, another windy day. Winds will be gusting up to 20 kilometers an hour.
Thanks, Dahlia. Well, 4 months after the body of a little girl was found in the Grand River in Dunnville, residents of that small community south of Hamilton are still wondering who the little girl was and how she died. They've been following the case since the remains were found back in May, but investigators still haven't been able to give them any answers. Alice Chiasson looks into why.
Somebody gave birth to that child. Somebody knows she's missing.
It was early spring. The water of the Grand River was still cold when a fisherman spotted something in the marsh.
It's a small town, right? So you don't ever have this, really.
When the police boats arrived, it was confirmed that something was someone's child.
Makes me wonder if I can actually let my kids out and play and stuff anymore.
That was more than 4 months ago, and detectives are no further ahead in their investigation. All we know is that the partial remains were those of a female between 1 and 2 years old.
It's painstaking work, and it takes time, which is how it goes, and we have to accept that. I mean, we all want answers quickly. Unfortunately, it does take time.
Without any missing child reports or Child Protective Service records matching the girl's description, the OPP is relying on lab results that have yet to determine much else.
First thing is we have to identify who she is. Then we have to determine the circumstances. And once we determine who she is, then obviously the next steps will move very quick.
But why is it taking so long?
Finding an individual's body in water complicates the process a little bit. We know the Grand River moves, and so this individual could have come from anywhere along that system of the Grand River. Water can also complicate the estimation of time since death. Depends how cold the water is, it can slow the decomposition process. So someone will maybe have been in that area longer than expected. Water just complicates the whole process. It complicates estimating time since death, and it complicates determining where this person originally came from.
Even as of this morning, I talked to, messaged with the pathologist, and, we're waiting. We have to be patient.
The coroner's office says it could take 9 months or longer before there's any new information to report.
I'm familiar with the work they do down there, and it is painstaking.
Because I'm really worried. I've been worried since this happened.
The lack of information has actually been pretty painful for the folks in Dunnville.
There's got to be an answer somewhere. And if these guys aren't giving us no news whatsoever.
You start second guessing people because we've heard nothing.
I need to know if we're in a safe community.
Justice seems far away. For now, they'll settle for giving her the dignity of a name.
We don't know whether to call her Jane Doe. Who wants to call her Jane Doe? It's somebody's baby.
Alice Chiasson, CBC News.
Welcome back. A senior government source tells CBC News the Prime Minister has signed off on dropping a number of COVID-19 travel rules by next week. Changes include dropping vaccine requirements for foreign travelers entering the country. Random testing of vaccinated travelers would also end, and the ArriveCan app will become optional. The requirement to wear face masks on planes and trains is still under discussion. Current measures were set to expire on September 30th. The race to be Ontario's next NDP leader kicked off today. A current MPP, Marit Stiles, says she can help the party win over Doug Ford's progressive Conservatives. Lauren Redicott looks at how the race is shaping up.
Today I'm launching my campaign to lead the Ontario NDP.
The race is officially on as Marit Stiles launched her campaign.
So we can kick this Conservative government out and replace it with a government that will work for you.
Several other NDP MPPs showed up to support her. The party had a disappointing showing in the last election, holding on as the official opposition, but losing seats to Doug Ford and his PCs. Today, Stiles talked about the economy, public health care and education, and climate change.
Spending 60% of your income on rent, that's not normal. Waiting 12 hours in emergency before you see a doctor, that's not normal.
She's the first to officially enter the race. Other possible contenders include Waterloo MPP Catherine Fife. She says she's considering it. Niagara area MPP Wayne Gates and Saul Mamakwa, a deputy leader. The next leader will be chosen in March.
I personally would have preferred something sooner, because I believe that it would be great to have the new leader in the chair, especially by the time of the return of the legislature after the Christmas break.
This NDP commentator supports Stiles. Here's what he says the next leader needs to do.
Inspire those who don't like Doug Ford, question him, or maybe falling away from him because of some of the things that he's doing. I don't think the direct competition was with the Liberals. The direct competition is with the PCs.
The Liberals came in a distant third, winning just 8 seats in the June election, also losing their leader. They're taking more time before choosing Stephen Del Duca's replacement.
There is no formal timeline yet for a leadership race to launch, to run, to conclude. And we're very early in a 4-year mandate of Doug Ford being premier again. So there's really no rush to the process.
One name that's been mentioned, though, is MPP Mitzi Hunter. As for the NDP race, candidates have until December 1st to register. Lorenda Radicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Advanced polls in the Toronto election open up in just a little over 2 weeks. While it will be the first time residents can mail in their ballot, they won't be allowed to vote online, unlike other places in the GTA. Natalie Coletta has more.
They have barrel keys to lock the USB key inside that stores the results.
The City of Toronto says they're ready for Election Day. Today, showing off their facility, new equipment, security measures, and for the first time, mail-in ballot boxes.
For the first time in a Toronto general election, voters will also have the choice to vote by mail.
We've got a lot of features and a lot of procedures in place to address any kind of security concerns. And we're also inviting candidates and scrutineers to observe the processing, separation, and tabulation of any of the returned ballots.
Voters can fill out their ballots and drop them in your neighborhood mailbox or in one of these yellow boxes placed in 25 locations around the city.
Right now, we've got about 20,000 people who have registered to vote by mail. We're averaging between 700 and 800 people a day right now. So between today and tomorrow, I anticipate we'll probably end up around 35,000.
But unlike other nearby municipalities, Torontonians won't be able to cast their ballots online.
Our Chief Technology Officer and our Chief Information Security Officer and the clerk are all of the view that internet voting is not a secure method of voting at this current stage of implementation.
Nor, say experts, is it particularly effective in boosting voter turnout.
The biggest impediment to voter turnout is that it's virtually impossible to be an informed voter at the municipal level, and that's what drives down voter turnout. It's not primarily an issue of the mechanics of how you vote. It's understanding why you should vote and for what candidate you should vote.
Simia Tiki points to Markham as an example.
Markham has had online voting for close to 20 years now. Their voter turnout rate is lower than the City of Toronto's without online voting.
And in a city with 1.89 million eligible voters, that's not great.
It's not unusual for 2 out of 3 urban residents not to cast a ballot. That's a pretty pathetic rate of participation. I'm really sorry to predict this. Almost a historically low voter turnout in the upcoming municipal election in Toronto, just as we saw a historically low voter turnout at the recent provincial elections.
Advanced voting starts in 15 days. Toronto's election is October 24th. Natalie Coletta, CBC News, Toronto.
And you are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, mostly clear this evening, with temperatures definitely cooler than previous nights. Currently only 11 degrees. We'll take a look at your weekend forecast after the break. Dahlia now with a more detailed look at your forecast. And Dahlia, fall is finally here and it's feeling like it today. I'm not complaining though. It is my favorite season, so bring on the sweater weather.
That's right, Kelda. Temperatures have fallen just in time for fall. That means flannel shirts and fall hats. Now let's jump right into the weather. Like I said, first day of fall, and it's going to be mainly sunny tomorrow as we kick off the weekend. And we're also going to be experiencing some cooler nights ahead just in time for the fall season. Earlier today, the temperature was 19 degrees. That was the daytime high, and a little cooler out in Barrie, 16 degrees. Really, it was quite a windy day today, and that's consistently going to stay until tomorrow as well. Another dry day tomorrow, and we are going to be seeing also some cooler temperatures in the evening. Like I said, I mean, northeastern part of the province has already seen a frost advisory, not so much so in the GTA. Like I said, mostly dry conditions. It's really going to kick in the wet conditions, the damp conditions as we go into Saturday afternoon. There might be some scattered showers, especially around 5 o'clock, around 6 o'clock, and then more so on Sundays, really where we're going to see some more damp conditions. Now, there is a cold front that's moving in, cutting in through those humid temperatures, and that's what gives us those cooler nights. Like today, temperatures will drop to 5 degrees. We haven't seen single digits in a while. It's quite fitting, quite seasonal for this time of year, especially marking the first day of fall. Markham a little cooler, 3 degrees. Overall, Golden Horseshoe, all single digits, and we will be seeing that tomorrow as well. For the evening of Friday night will be 5 degrees, and then Saturday back up to those double digits, but then it's not until Tuesday where you head back into those single digits. But dry conditions for Friday, mostly Saturday will be dry, and then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday back to those damp conditions, so you'll need an umbrella as you head back to work. And you know, it's sweater weather, so get your sweaters out because you'll need it, especially when we're talking about those breezy fall evenings.
Thanks so much, Dahlia. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Chris Glover has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.